Hello, this is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul,
and Jolene, and today we're talking about
getting the gang back together, or getting your role playing group together again, all for the first time.
or scheduling games.
So I was thinking about when I was a kid, or I don't know about most gamers, but it seems like most of us started when we were kids or teenagers, and we basically played whenever we wanted. Right? It was after school, it was on the weekends, and we would play starting at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and we'd play till our parents told us to go to sleep. And my parents were pretty old, so they went to bed and let us play till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Those were the good old days. I call it the golden age of role playing games because you could play whenever you wanted. Some people even say they talk about playing after school and stuff. Pretty much me and my friends, we reserved role playing games for the weekend. It was something we really looked forward to. And of course, my older brother would play with us too. He was the GM for us for a long time. So that was what we looked forward to on weekends. And my brother would actually had joined a group of people that we didn't necessarily were friends of ours, but he found somehow through mutual acquaintances or something. So I joined playing that game, and that game played. I think it was every other Saturday, and that was exciting because I remember having a calendar, and I put D&D, and it was like every other Saturday was D&D. So it was quite fun to play back then. But nowadays things are a little different. There's commitments and obligations.
It's called life.
Yes. So for some reason, all of a sudden, and I've been pretty lucky. I mean, I was able to play pretty much every other Saturday or every other Friday, whenever it was, for quite a long time. And Jolene, she was a very nice spouse and gave me permission to go and play every other Friday with the boys and Salinas. And it was quite fun. But, now, we have a teenage son and things happen, right? People get sick. He has a concert because he's in band, and people have their kids are involved in extracurricular activities, and sometimes you just have a hard time getting together and playing games.
Everybody does. Our friend Shannon, he calls it you have to pay the family tax.
The family tax, and at first, and he plays a lot, right? Because he's a single male, guy, does pretty well, and he has a lot of free time, I guess, but he also has, of course, you have to divide everything with your social time and your other friends and gaming. So he doesn't usually have a hard time getting a game in. The problem he has is that he wants to make sure that the game's going to happen, right? What's the term he uses?
Lock him in.
He wants to be locked in, and it's funny because me and Jolene crack up about it all the time. He'll say on an email, right? So planning is done by various ways. And one of them is email, right? That's a tried and true way of getting people together. Email is pretty old, even for us old gamers. I mean, back when AOL was around, right? I would send emails to people and say, "Hey, how about we play in a couple of weeks on this day?"
He would also call and harass him.
There was that, right? Because I am basically the game mother, right? I'm the game dad, or whatever you want to call it. I'm the one that usually runs the game, so that means that I have to set up the game and when we're playing, what time we're playing, and whose house we're playing at, because sometimes we would change where we would play. And so all that was handled through email, except for those few people who, for whatever reason, wouldn't answer the email. So, especially we're supposed to play at their house, we're like, oh, is he not reading his email? Does he not want to say no, or what the deal is? So eventually I would have to call him, and for me, that kind of alleviates the whole reason for having email. But anyway, so I would have to call him and get the 411, right? The information on what's
He's
going on.
He's looking at me like he's making an inside joke.
And so that's what would happen, right? We would lock down the dates. And Shannon, because he has a lot of free time, he's a single guy. He doesn't have the family tax to him is, his family social engagements, right? Because they'll
That's
have
the family
parties.
tax to everybody because everybody has a family, right?
Right.
You have to go and when it's people's birthday.
Right.
Some people don't have a large family, but everybody has some kind of a
right.
thing.
But I was saying he doesn't have a wife and kids, and so that added family tax would definitely be there. So he has a lot of free time on the weekends if he wanted to, unless it's taken up by something else. much more free time than somebody who had a family, kids, and those kind of obligations. So he's pretty open to playing almost any time, and he would say, "Okay, just I want to be locked in, right? That means I want a firm confirmation that we're playing on this day." So he doesn't plan on it, and then all of a sudden plans fall through, and he's stuck with an empty day where he could have filled it with something else because he's a planner. He likes doing things ahead of time or planning out things ahead of time, which I am not. I am not a planner. I am more of a hey, let's do something tomorrow kind of guy, which doesn't always work out well.
And he's in a family of people that are let's do something tomorrow kind of people. So
yeah, well, I guess my dad was a big planner. He didn't like doing things out of all of a sudden, but for some reason, most of my family didn't get that gene. So
I have that gene.
Yes, you definitely are a planner. So,
but it's hard when you never know people when you're trying to schedule events, and it's not just us; it's all gamers, right? I went on to Reddit, and there's all kinds of people talking about how they try to get the game scheduled and how hard it is, and people should commit, and once they commit, they shouldn't change their plans. And I'm like, well, sometimes your kid gets sick, you have to go help your mother do something, that something comes up, and things like that happen, right? People should be understanding to a point.
But there's some people who view gaming, I think, is how high on the hierarchy of things, how important they are to you. And some people, that is pretty high. That's like their one way of entertainment or one of the few ways they entertain themselves
They're
or socialize.
Yes.
And then if you cut that out, then you kind of mess them up for the weekend.
Which you can understand why you want to be locked in so you know what you're going to be doing, yes. And not be stuck going, I have nothing to do in this particular time frame, and I need it. I was planning on this and it didn't happen. Well, that happens to me all the time because my husband doesn't actually go by the plans that are made. He just does whatever he wants to. So locking people into his schedule is kind of hard.
Yes, but you want a firm commitment.
Yes. So we go through spurts with our gaming group where we play every other Saturday.
Right.
And we can do that for 2 or 3 months at a time, and then all of a sudden, life gets in the way. Summer vacations, or you have to do this, or your kid has a concert that you have to take him to, or people get sick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think people will understand big things like that are unforeseen. People getting sick, having a family emergency and stuff like that. But stuff that like,
I need to go grocery shopping. It's not a good
excuse. Well, no, that's not probably a good excuse. But I don't think people like wash their hair, right? There's an excuse that not really is an excuse. But there's certain things that like I'm gonna go see a movie with my kid, or I'm gonna go see a movie with my wife. We got this other party that came up. Well, we had planned this 2 months ahead of time. Well, no, the party's more important than our gaming event, and then that's fine. That's fine. But as long as people
stuff like that happens.
But as long as people know how that hierarchy works, then they can like, well, Joe is always canceling, so there's different things you could do about that. You could kick Joe out of the group, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That on Reddit there were all kinds of people with the way that they do it, right?
Wow.
There's the one guy that says I have 5 players and we have committed to play every Sunday night from 3 or every Sunday from 5 to 9 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And nobody is allowed to change that. And and I have to be able to run the game for at least 3 players. So if somebody drops out, that's okay, but it's a commitment. Everybody needs to stick to the commitment. And if they don't stick to the commitment, then they're out of the group.
Wow. Well, I think depending on the games you're running, right? If you're running this long campaign game where it matters if most of the people show up, right? It matters if things continue to make the campaign go forward. Then that really sucks if people are always dropping out. But for example, our home game, I call it the home game because we usually play here at my house. But I'm usually the GM. I have been the GM for D&D and Pathfinder and all that. And then all of a sudden, I ran last year. I ran a Shadowrun adventure because Jolene was interested in Shadowrun, and everybody really liked Shadowrun. Really, it was the new shiny, even though it's 5th edition. It was old edition, but my kid really liked it. His friends really liked it. They really they're really mini maximizers and like that crunchy goodness of maximizing their character and finding every little option that helps them out. And I got stuck because I was thinking I'm going to run this one shot. I'm just going to run it once. And here I am, this group demands, not really demands, but demands in the fact that they really like the game, and I really like the world of Shadowrun, so that's why, I had no problem continuing that game. That became the game that our home group game, right? The game we play at home, and
Recently.
within the last year, right?
Yeah, I ran a campaign.
And then at the same time, though, I needed a break from GMing because I've been asking my son, and actually I've been asking the whole group, hey, does anybody want to run another game or or continue our characters, but switch the GM duties? And Jolene stepped up and she ran a really fun game. It was, how many sessions was it? It was quite a few.
3 or 4.
Oh, 3 or 4. And it was really fun. And so it gave me a break from GMing and it got me to play. And I was like super excited. And, and then I'm back to running Shadowrun. So the home group game goes through these spurts where we, like Jolene said, we play for 3 months every Saturday, just like clockwork. And then we just the convention came up. We can't play that weekend. And I don't like playing the weekend before the convention because there's always last minute things that I want to do. And then there's con crud after the weekend because Jolene got a little ill. And now my voice is a little funny. I don't know if you can tell, but I got it a little week late. But I think it was work crud because somebody at work was sick and they didn't tell me.
February people.
They didn't tell me till the second
viruses.
day I was back. And then they go, oh, you should have probably wiped down the desk and everything, the keyboard, because I've been sick and coughing all weekend. I'm like, thank you. Thank you very much.
I tried to blame me.
Yeah, I did. I knew it wasn't you. So that happened. So we haven't played Shadowrun in like a month.
Yeah, and I was telling him today, when are we gonna play Shadowrun? I know that the people want to play, but everybody's sick in my house, and that kind of puts a damper on it. But
and you don't want to spread the germs either.
Yeah. Well, and
we don't want to spread the germs.
And the people that play in my group are the ones that make me the sickest. Last year and this year, Alan was sick at the convention. He'd been sick for a while this year, but last year he literally had a fever at the convention, and then I got the worst sore throat I had had in years after that. And this year he was still coughing, and I had allergies and was getting over whatever I had a few weeks ago, and suddenly I got it again. So
yeah, you got it pretty bad.
So
and she called me from work, and I'm like, "Who is this?" Because she sounded like she was like a toad. Like I can't even go as deep as her voice was, but it was pretty scary actually. Somebody on the other phone, some guy is saying, "Saul, it's me." I'm like, "Oh, who's this?" But
so stuff like that happens, right? That's life, right? That's the part that gets in the way.
Yes.
So if you're in that game where the guy's saying that you have to be there, and you're sick for 2 weeks, then you might get kicked out of that group. But then there's other people who have other solutions, right?
Right. And so I have the home game that we play more or less on a regular basis for stretches at a time, and then things get in the way, right? And then I'm like, well, my home group doesn't like making characters. They don't like trying new games unless I really force them to play. I'm really into, trying new stuff, and I buy a lot of new role-playing games, and I would like to try them out. And my home group is just not the group to do it with. So, I searched around and I asked a couple friends of mine that I knew from going to conventions and stuff. I said, hey, you play.
And he formed a new group.
So I formed a new group, and it just kind of coalesced, right? Somebody asked somebody else, and we have a core group of about 5 players, and we had 7, but we had 8 actually, but 3 of them moved to Oregon
or Washington,
same place, and across the river. And so we lost 3 players, but we still have 5 players. And and we all come from different. We all have different. We're on different stages of life, right? Well, most of us are older though, over 50. I think I hate to say. There's no kids in the game, but we all have different priorities and different families. Some kids. One of my friends, he's now an empty nester. His last son went to college, and another one has kids in high school, and one going off to college, and Morgan is retired and living the life of luxury, as luxury as it can be, and and I'm working, and I have my family, my son, and my mother-in-law that we take care of and stuff. But so arranging that game is a little bit different. I mean, we can't really play every certain day, just because too many of us have too many things going on. So
But it's also a one-shot kind of group,
right? And that's another thing is that one of the things I wanted to do is I don't want to get stuck being the only GM, because I don't learn when I'm GMing that way. I don't learn from other GMs. It always happens no matter what, that even if you play with a bad GM, you learn something. You're like, man, that didn't really work well.
You don't have that problem with the GMs you play with.
Well, not no, but I conventions I've played with some GMs that were not that great. But you learn from that, and you go, okay, now I know that that's not a good way to do it because I didn't have fun, and my players probably wouldn't have fun. So that's what I like about being a player and a GM at the same time. So in this group, we all agreed that we all will run and we all will play one shots.
And the way that you schedule it, since this is about scheduling,
Yes.
is they do these doodle polls and
Right.
they do emails and then they try to nail down at least one Saturday or 2 Saturdays a month. Usually one Saturday a month.
Usually it's just one.
And it's hilarious because Saul is really bad with dates and times and things.
Well, yeah. What I failed to do is I failed to inform Jolene of my plans, and then she comes up with, oh, we're supposed to do this on that day. I'm like, damn, I forgot about that, which is my problem, right? Because I forget about things. So my answer to that is to include her in the group, and I think I've done that a couple of times, but every once in a while you fall off the group list or whatever.
And if he includes me, then I can tell him, why did you put down you could play on that day? Because we're supposed to do this.
Right.
Because, we have a large family. Saul has a large family, and we're included in all kinds of different things, right? We just birthday parties and like
marriages.
All kinds of things, right? So you never know, and you do know when people schedule stuff or say, you know that this is coming up, then it's easier if you know. So you kind of have to be flexible. One of the guys on Reddit said that, you should make your time shorter if you want to play every week to try to get everybody in. Do it online. Do different kinds of things, right? Come up with other ideas than trying to lock people into you have to be there every Sunday at 5:00 or you're out of the group.
Well, yeah, I think this is mainly, I hate to say in real life or face-to-face games, because both of those things can apply to online games. So everybody around the table at the same time, right? In the same place.
Even online games, even your the Friday night games that you're actually all around the Roll20 table.
Yes.
And that is hard to do, even because of everybody's schedule, right?
Right. I talked about email in the past and how that was the tool that was the main tool that I used, back in the early 90s. Like I said, I was using AOL, and I would email, like, spam my group, like, when I was 2 weeks out, I sent an email, and then like a week out, I send an email, once a day, and then like the next day I would send out 3 emails and then 4 emails, because I would not get a response from people, and I definitely didn't want. Well, I didn't see anything. No, you can hardly miss my 15 emails of spam that I sent you, and say, hey, are we gonna play this? You haven't responded, Mike, or you haven't responded, Tim, or Joe, or Biff, or Bob, or whatever your name is, and then that's what I did. What Jolene was talking about, what we want to talk about, is tools you can use now that you can help you finding out a date that you can play. And she mentioned Doodle Poll, which is funny because we're in Silicon Valley. There's all kinds of tech heads around, and all my friends are much smarter than me, and they all know all kinds of stuff. And so one of them came up with, oh, let's do a doodle poll. And I go, what's that? And so he puts out a doodle poll and invites me up. I go, oh, that's pretty good. Another one goes, I'm going to make an email group so we can all email each other about the games and, talk about what games we're playing, how we're going to select the game, what characters we have and all that stuff. I go, oh, yeah, that's cool. And another person set up let's use Google Calendar, or I forget what app it is. And we all synced our calendars. So when somebody puts something on the calendar, everybody sees it and you can say you're going or not going.
That can be a problem.
So but it's a tool for people who, for like me, who have.
If you know how to use a Google Calendar, it'll work. If you don't, you might have some problems.
Well, there's, your phone has a Samsung calendar, and I think you can link it to whatever. But what I'm saying is these are tools that can help you get your game get together, right? And I mentioned it before. There's that meme out there where they have Doctor Strange and the Avengers, and they're like, and Doctor Strange goes, I've been to 6,985, alternate realities, trying to find a day that we can play. And he goes, then did you find one? He goes, I found one. Right? So sometimes that's what it feels like, so these tools are out there that I think can help you get your game together, get your gang together, and agree on a date, and agree on a time, and even agree on a game.
I think you should also be flexible, right? So
Well,
the
that's
flexible in the fact that, well, maybe you can't get together with your group on that day, so find other things that ways you can play, right? There's online,
oh yeah.
and then there's also, and I don't mean the video games that my son plays online, the MMO games with all of his crazy teenage
You're
friends.
talking about using a virtual tabletop or something
Using
like
it like Roll20,
Right.
and I even know you can go play games with people you don't know on Roll20.
that. Yes.
I may not do it, but if you really, really want to play a game, you might do that, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I'm a little leery of people I don't know, but that's okay. Then there's also going to game stores, and they have games, and usually on Saturdays and Sundays they have, what is it? Pathfinder, what are they called? Adventure League, and
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
and what's the other one?
Play.
Yeah, where you can actually go and play with people. You don't have to know them. It might be a game that might be, railroady or whatever, or you have a certain mission or whatever it is, but you can actually go and do it, right?
Well, that's true. If you just want to play, yeah, there's all kinds of avenues that you can explore for that.
I'm just giving people ideas so they have ideas that, the gang might not be able to get together on Saturday night, but that doesn't mean that if you really, really need to play a role-playing game, a tabletop role-playing game, there are things you can do.
Yes. Well, I mean, that is always, that's always a consideration. You can always, the people who can't make it, well, okay, so Jimmy and John can't make it. Well, there's 4 of us here. What are we going to do? Well, you can play a board game or something like that. But I'm talking about just for this episode, it's about trying to get the gang together to play a specific game, that you want to play. And so, I think it's pretty hard to get the same group together every day, every week. Depends on your lifestyle situations. Here in the Bay Area, everybody's, a half an hour away from each other at least, and that's with no traffic. If there's traffic, then who knows how long it is, right? And I know people who commute quite a bit. I mean, I used to commute to Salinas, which is 60 miles away, an hour away at the time. But if I were to do that now, if I was to try to do the exact same thing now, it would take me an hour and a half to an hour 45 minutes to make that same route, to drive that same distance at the same time, because traffic has gotten ridiculous here. And so that, would that change if I wanted to play, if that was an issue. So for some reason, some people it is. A lot of people, like certain people I know, if the game isn't going to be over 5 or 6 hours, that person doesn't want to show up because it's not worth his time or her time to drive, a distance to go to a game. So, so there's all kinds of things. I know people who drive, I don't know if you know the Bay Area, but, they'll drive an hour and a half to go to a game, and that's amazing.
And that might only be 60 miles, people. I'm just telling you.
45. Yeah, it depends on.
And if you have to go over a bridge, add an extra half hour.
It all depends on when, like Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. There tends to be I would say there tends to be less gridlock, but at certain times there is gridlock, right? Because people are trying to get to San Francisco, they're trying to go to Santa Cruz, and so those freeways are blocked. So
the hilarious thing is our friend Mike moved to Portland, and he
Yes.
discovered that everything is 30 minutes away. It doesn't matter where you're going, because that's just the way.
20 minutes, but I think it's
No,
20
he says
minutes.
30.
This is it 30
Yeah.
now?
It takes you 30 minutes to get here, 30 minutes to get there. So you might as well just plan on that. Well, here it does sometimes take you 30 minutes to go anywhere, but
So that takes you an hour and a half, though. That's the problem.
that's the problem.
Yeah. So, like I said, it all depends on where you live, obviously, and how much you're willing to devote to going to your game. So there's, like I said, I think doodle poll or something like it, something that you could throw up a calendar and say, pick the dates that you are available. And then what we do is when there's 5 people when it was
On one date.
on one date, we call it a quorum, and then we decide, okay, do we really want to play this day? And when we say yes, then we decide, okay, who's going to GM? And then he throws out or she throws out games that he's willing or she's willing to run. And then everybody picks or votes on which one it is and stuff. And that's handled through the email that the other person set up for our group. And it works out pretty pretty good. And I'm sure there's different ways that everybody can use, or different tools that you can use online. Use that computer. It's more than an email machine. It can really help you out. Get those dates nailed down so you can play. And I think that that's really been a lot of fun for me, playing with that group. We call it the Stanford group, or somebody called it the Stanford group, because it's by
That's where
Stanford
it is.
University. So, and we have, like I said, we all have various schedules, and we're various families, styles, and stuff like that. So it's that doodle poll and the calendar really help you settle on a date, and it's really helped us out quite a bit. And it's really cool because it's visual for me, and it really helps. Like, oh yeah, I can see where there's a big line and where all blue, where we all can play. Boom.
It makes it a little hard for me because then he goes, "Oh, we're gonna play on this day," and I go, "Did you forget about this?" Because
I know.
and it drives him nuts, and I can't help it though, because sometimes I'm like, well,
Well, that's my
we
fault,
could
I
move
guess.
it, but sometimes you can't move other people's things.
Yeah. So it was like I am, for some reason, I am the principal problem in that group, because they seem to have a lot of days that they can play, and I'm the one going, oh, I forgot about this. Can we move it to this day? And they're really nice people, so they all change. Usually they change the date, or I tell them, what, I can't make it, but go ahead and play without me, and that's cool too, and they've done that before. So
See, that's what I mean about being flexible. One of the guys on Reddit said that so say that all of your people can't get together. Well, make each game session, even if you're running a campaign, you could make each game session compartmentalized, as in those people that are there are the ones that are doing it this
Right.
time, right? So that makes it easier, because then if I can't show up next week, but I can show up in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then my character may have to catch up to you, or might have to, he told me to come over here and here I
Right.
am, kind of thing.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think there's different ways you can look at dealing with that kind of situation when somebody doesn't show up. I think we could probably have a podcast about it. But what I would do is do exactly that. Is like, either they call them side quests, right? You could have a side quest, or you can have a quest where, oh, that happened 6 months ago when Jimmy was down, with the flu, or in the game he was hurt, or he went on he had to go fasting for a new spell or something, whatever. You have that dead time that the group had, but they decided not to do anything because they're waiting for Jimmy to do whatever he's got to do. So in that 1 week or 3 days or whatever, you can have, that's when you can place a little quest or a little side adventure that you can run, and then you're right, and that keeps the continuity going. Oh, that happened when you were ill, Jimmy. You go, oh yeah, okay, cool.
One of the ideas that also was to make the game shorter, so people can, instead of 4 to 6 hours, make it 2.5 hours, which to me, I mean, usually when you play a game at our house, it's at a good 5 hours, right? 4 or 5 hours,
Yeah,
depending
at least.
on, at least. Sometimes it goes longer, and
But-
everybody's really, really excited.
But is it really 4 or 5 hours, or is it like an hour of BSing and opening chip bags and all this other stuff, and then
It's at least a half hour of that,
at least, yeah,
because nobody can ever get here at the same time.
there's that.
So, and that's part of the social aspect. So however you have to get your group together, do it. I mean, and if you can't get them all together, do a side quest.
Right.
If you can't do that, figure out how to play with them online. And one other suggestion I have is that the way that, even if people can't get in there to play in every single group, I know that you've done email things where you're telling the other GM, this is what I'm doing, while you did one with the gym where you were talking about fixing up the bar.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
kinds
yeah.
of different
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
where you guys had a lot of fun, even though you guys couldn't play for a couple of weeks because people had stuff to do. You were emailing back and forth and having your own side conversations,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Which keeps everybody, the GM feels like the players are involved, and the players feel like the GM hasn't forgotten about them or whatever,
Right.
even though
right.
everybody couldn't get together.
Yes, keeping the game going, keeping the game alive. Really, that's
Yeah.
what it is. That's what it was. I think with a lot of work, some people, a little work for some other people, you can get that group together. You can play those games that you really want to play, whether it's a long campaign style or one shots. I think what's really important is that you get those games in. You don't want to. You don't want to look, oh, those games of yesteryear when I was a kid, and just dwell on that. No, you can play today. It takes a little finagling. It takes maybe asking favors from your spouse or your kids or your friends going, oh, yeah, you know what?
Don't ask favors from your kids, people. I'm
Oh,
just telling you that right now.
well, not ask favor for your kid, but tell your kid, hey, you're not going to go to that baseball game. Cause
You may not. No, you don't do that. Not with your kids. Your
no,
spouse,
I'm
yes,
just
not
kidding.
your kids.
But you make sure that they know that your family knows what your plans are, and then then you could all work around that kind of schedule. Unless I don't want you guys or people, what is it?
Don't make problems with your families, people.
Yes, don't do that.
Make sure your family, if you have people in your family that don't play with you and don't play, make sure you pay your family tax so that when you do play, they don't get mad at you.
Right. What I'm saying is, set aside a time and make sure that everybody knows that that you really want to play, and that everybody's going to get together and play on this day. So there's no surprises or less chance of surprises, and what happens is you're most likely to be successful in getting together and playing the game.
And writing things down when your family stuff will help you out.
That's a good idea. Calendars are indispensable these days.
Yes. There you go. Hopefully this helps you in some way to get your group together, or know that other people have the same problems as you do in getting their groups together.
Yes.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.